What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another League Winners Fantasy Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're recording this on Friday, May 26th. My name is Eric. That's my co-host, Will. How you feeling this morning, man?
Dog, I'm feeling good. Excited to be putting out another video for this lovely platform. Love every time we come over here, honestly. It's a great time.
Absolutely, yeah. Great to have the opportunity to be part of the League Winners umbrella, so thank you to them. And today, we're going to be talking about some Dynasty sells. I do want to kind of preface this. We'll have a little discussion before we get into the actual players. I think it's important to give some context to what we're talking about today, because we're not just going with the generic and the obvious. I think a lot of platforms, a lot of people will tell you some sells that you already know are sells, whether it be guys like Kenneth Walker or Cortland Sutton, who, yeah, everybody agrees they're a sell. But when everybody agrees that somebody's a sell, they're not really a sell anymore. You're not going to be able to recoup enough value from them for it to be worth selling them in Dynasty. So they're more of a hold. And so in order to find like a true sell, you have to be pretty contrarian. You have to go against the market. You have to find guys that the market still values highly, that people still like. And that's fairly controversial. And so that's kind of what we're getting into today, which is why I wanted to give a little bit of context. But Will, do you have anything to add to kind of that discussion?
So it's just kind of like what you said. A lot of this comes into not so much whether a player is bad or whether they're in a bad situation, this or that. This is all based upon value and where you can get a player's value at its peak. You know, we're trying to find value in a good spot, whereas where Eric's saying everyone thinks somebody's a sell, you're not going to get anything good back for them. So we're trying to find people that people wouldn't typically think of as trade targets, as sells, to get that maximum value. So a lot of people aren't really going to agree with us on some of these players, but that's kind of the point of what this whole list is. So stick with us, and we're going to talk through some of our reasoning on this. Also, us labeling a player as a sell doesn't mean we don't like them or we don't think they're going to produce at all. In fact, we like all of these players on this list. I love a lot of these players on this list.
Yeah.
But it pains us to say that you should probably get rid of them based on the amount of value you can get for them at this point in time. So a player being a buy or sell isn't so much about the player themselves, more so just the market value on these players.
Absolutely. Yeah. The one thing that I want to touch on is that these are sells, but that doesn't mean they're must sells. Like a lot of times when we talk about these guys, they're guys that you really need to get off your teams. They're ticking time bombs. They're going to drastically reduce in value. That's not what we're talking about today. A lot of these guys, like Will said, we do really, really like. They're players that we think are going to produce, that are going to be valuable to your teams, but through one way or another are getting overhyped by the market right now. And so the value that you can get back is probably worth trading them.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for sticking with us through that. We got through the context. Now let's get into the list. The first guy that we have listed here, I think, really encapsulates all of what we just talked about. A guy that we've both hyped up quite a bit in the pre-draft process leading up to rookie drafts, and a guy that I think will produce quite a bit, and that's Dalton Kincaid. He's currently listed as the tight end 6 on Keep Trade Cut, but I'll throw to you, Will, to give your thoughts and opinions on this one.
Yeah, it's like you said, he's the tight end 6 on Keep Trade Cut. And to be honest with you, I don't really mind that ranking, but his value is just sky high right now because the thing with rookies is that we have these rose-colored glasses for him, you know? And Dalton Kincaid has not played a single NFL snap. But we're based on the hype of what we're hearing in the media where they're saying he's going to be this big body slot receiver. He's going to be a tight end that's used as a slot receiver. And anybody from a fantasy perspective, if you hear that, you're kind of drooling at that because that's a crazy advantage at that position. But who's to say he even performs at that level when he gets to the NFL? Who's to say he performs at that level for years, you know? It could take a little bit for him to actually get acclimated, actually be good. So in instances like that, his value right now is higher than it could ever be unless he comes out there and performs at a super elite level, unless he, you know, raises his stock. That's the only way I could really see you getting more value out of Dalton Kincaid later down the road.
Yeah, I think there are instances where we could see his value increase. I mean, if any of the hype and speculation around him being like the next Kelsey were to come even close to true, then obviously that value is going to increase. But like you said, with tight ends specifically in fantasy, it typically takes them 2-3 years before they really blossom and turn into productive pieces of your team. And so I don't necessarily think this is his career peak, but I think it could be his peak in the short term. And even if it's not, the reason that I put him on this list is for the trade up potential, not necessarily the trade down potential. Plugging it in to keep trade cut, and I know that it's not a perfect site. There are flaws to it, but I think it's a decent kind of barometer for what the market thinks as far as these trade values. Right now, it says that you can trade Dalton Kincaid and Brian Robinson for either of Kyle Pitts or Mark Andrews. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I love Dalton Kincaid. I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're not hating on Kincaid. We think he's going to be good, but give me the tight end 1A or 1B in Dynasty every day of the week for that type of value.
Yeah, guys who are already performing at a high level. You know what I mean? Like, you're trading somebody who could possibly perform for someone who is already performing. That's what we mean by market value and trying to get things like that are just worth it for the trade.
Absolutely. All right. So that is Dalton Kincaid. Let's move on to the next one here. We'll switch positions to the quarterbacks. Another guy that we were both a fairly big fan of coming into rookie draft season, and that is Bryce Young. We liked him as a prospect. He does go to number 1 overall. He lands with a good coaching staff. There's definitely some positives here about him. But before I get too far, again, I will toss it to you. Let me know your thoughts on Bryce Young.
Yeah, this is a discussion that you and I kind of had pretty early on in the whole draft process and just getting to know these prospects and learning more about them. Bryce Young was somebody that we liked a lot. We thought he was the best quarterback available in the draft until people like Anthony Richardson kind of, brought themselves to the forefront as well. But Bryce Young in himself, when you look at him as a prospect, you look at him as a player in the NFL and his play style, it's tough to give him a huge ceiling. Like, it's tough to say that he'll ever really be a top 5 quarterback in Dynasty because he can move, but he's not quite a mobile rushing quarterback, and we know the kind of upside that can bring. He also landed in North Carolina, or Carolina, I guess. Does Carolina, did they just cover both Carolinas for that?
I mean,
I know
kinda,
it's in
but
North
it
Carolina,
is,
but
yeah.
interesting. But he landed there with not really a great group of weapons around him. He's got DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, recently acquired Jonathan Mingo, Hayden Hurst. So it's not really a great situation for him either. It's going to take some time for him to actually get, or at least for the team to really build around him to get a proper group of people around him. So it's tough to say he has that top-end quarterback potential.
Yeah, completely agree. You mentioned he doesn't have the great weapons group right now. The amount that Carolina had to trade up in order to get to number 1 in the draft, they had to give up, I think, a first in 2024 in order to do so. Makes it even harder to, like you said, surround him with more weapons in the future. Obviously, we like Bryce. I expect him to have longevity in this league. But again, to your point, I don't think he's ever going to have that top 5 type upside. You mentioned the rushing. People do like to talk about how athletic he is, how mobile he can be. And I think he does have that ability. But for me, and my experience so far in fantasy, is that quarterback rushing is more tendency-based than ability-based.
Yes.
And what we saw from him in college is that he had significantly less rush attempts and less rush yards than even a guy like Joe Burrow did in college. And Joe Burrow, provides like a little bit of a rushing floor, but you're not going to be hyping up Joe Burrow for his rushing upside. And so I don't think people should be doing that for Bryce Young either. But again, I'm not trying to be super negative on Bryce Young. We like him. The reason that we have him on this list is because he's currently ranked as the QB 10 over guys like Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and Tua Tagovailoa. I know that you might not agree with all of the names, but for me, I think I would probably take all 4 of those guys over Bryce Young in a startup draft. And currently that's not being reflected by the market.
I will say I would agree with that. I would still agree with that, yeah. Especially with the way Tua played last year. He shut me up quite a bit in terms of, the stuff I was saying about him. Hopefully he stays healthy this year as well. And then Dak, you know how I feel about Dak, but we have seen how high Dak can finish as a quarterback as well. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay. And yeah, I think you could probably make that deal Kyler or Deshaun just like 1-for-1 straight up for Bryce Young. I'd be happy with that. And I think you could probably get a little bit, plus a little bit extra on top of Prescott or Tua if you're trading away Bryce Young. And again, those are some deals that I would be more than happy to make.
Yeah, because it's just a trade people would like to make too. They'll think that they're trading down for another, young quarterback who's going to have more longevity, but and all in all, these guys are all young still as well. Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott's a little bit on the older side, but still probably has a lot of years left in the league. Tua on the younger side as well. So it's not really trading down in age if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then we didn't formally put this guy on the list. I considered it momentarily, and I talked myself back out of it. But I wanted to bring him up anyway. Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
He fits this narrative that we're talking about, at least. A guy who's unproven, a guy who we do like, the market likes, everybody is high on him, but the hype is skyrocketing. His value is through the roof right now before we've seen him play a single snap. I think he's probably the one guy of all of the guys that fit that narrative on this list where that's deserved, which is why I didn't formally put him on the list, but I do want to discuss him. What are your thoughts about where he falls into the Dynasty landscape right now?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's tough to really place him in like the you must sell him because his value's skyrocketing, it's through the roof, because at the end of the day, he does have QB1 potential, you know?
Yes.
So it's tough to say he's a sell because that very much could become a very bad take. But at the same time, he is someone that you could use that value to trade for more of a sure thing. Like I know you had talked about a trade up to another quarterback. Do you want to discuss that one with the people? Because we talked about it before the video.
Yeah, so we discussed with Bryce Young kind of the trade downs in value, at least according to Keep Trade Cut. That's kind of what we're referencing throughout the video, where you could trade down to Kyler, Deshaun, Dak, whatever. I'm not as comfortable with that with Anthony Richardson, just because I think his ceiling is higher than all of those guys, like you mentioned. But a trade up to a guy who I think is undervalued by the market right now, like Lamar Jackson, I think makes a lot of sense. Their values have gotten a lot closer together recently. And I think, what was it? I looked on Keep Trade Cut, and you could trade Anthony Richardson plus Rashad White to get to Lamar Jackson. As much as I love Anthony Richardson, I'm doing that all day. Lamar has proven it to me. He's put up the greatest fantasy season of all time in 2019. Now he has the best weapons group he's ever had around him. He's got Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator, hopefully going to let him air it out a little bit more. I expect this offense in Baltimore to be better than maybe we've ever seen it. So that's a deal that I'd be willing to do. Other than that, I'm holding on to Anthony Richardson for the most part.
Yeah, but it's just like you said, it does make the conversation more interesting because you could get a lot for Anthony Richardson. Depending on what your team needs, you could get a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's transition to the wide receiver position. There are going to be, as you've seen so far, a lot of rookies on this list. That's just, we just came off a rookie draft season, just came off the NFL draft. That's who's hot right now. That's, their hype is through the roof. And so that's kind of the whole idea of this video. So they happen to be more so the subject of a lot of these trade values that we're referring to. So wide receiver position, Jordan Addison, another rookie receiver on here. We went back and forth on him as far as what we thought of him as a prospect throughout the pre-draft process, but he ends up in a great landing spot, and I think he's set up to produce right away. How do you feel about him in general, and how do you feel about him in the Dynasty landscape as far as him being a sell?
So just in general, like him as a player, him landing with the Minnesota Vikings, I feel like he absolutely could be a high-end producer for that team pretty quickly, but I do think that he's not the number one for that offense. Obviously, he's going to be Justin Jefferson for the foreseeable future. So when you're looking at this guy, he's not going to be the wide receiver one in this offense. So it's sort of a Devonta Smith type situation. But the kind of talk we've had, because they're similar builds, stuff like that. He's undersized as well, kind of a skinny guy, but he's just not as good as Devonta Smith as well. Yeah. He's just not Smitty at the end of the day. So it's tough to say you should hold on to him, and it's tough that he is actually valued above people who are wide receiver ones in their offense as a result of him landing on the Minnesota Vikings. Guys like Traylon Burks or guys like Jerry Jeudy, who are the clear wide receiver ones and have better profiles in the NFL and have experience in the NFL, are getting valued underneath this guy who just hasn't played a single snap yet. So what do you think? Do you have any more about Jordan Addison?
A little bit, but I echo all of the sentiments that you just talked about. I would be more than willing to trade trade for Jerry Jeudy and Traylon Burks off of Jordan Addison. Again, we like Jordan Addison. Mm-hmm. We're not here to just talk crap about him. He's a good player. He's going to produce. Like we talked about at the top of the video, not a must sell, but Jerry Jeudy, Traylon Burks, I think are two really good examples you brought up. I think also if you want to trade down just a little bit further, maybe get a little bit extra on top, guys like Brandon Ayuk or Christian Watson, all ranked below Jordan Addison. Ayuk, I think, is kind of currently doing what we hope Addison is going to be able to do. He's gotten to that kind of 110, 120 target range, over 1,000 yards, and producing as a wide receiver too in fantasy, which, you know, if Jordan Addison does that for you within the next 3 years, you're over the moon. You're really excited about that. That's exactly what you want. But at least there's a path right now for Ayuk to be the wide receiver one on his team. People can argue for Debo, and I think that Debo is incredibly talented, but just straight up as a wide receiver, I think Ayuk is probably the number one receiving option there. And also, the Niners have acknowledged the possibility that they might not be able to re-sign him with all of the guys that they're going to have under contract. So, you know, I'm not going to project where he's going to go or what role he's going to fit into, but there's always that possibility he goes and it gets to be the wide receiver one on a different team, whereas Addison is never going to be that.
Yeah, I got a theory, though. I got a theory he's going to land with the Texans. I would like that a lot. I would like that a lot. Brandon Ayuk to the Texans. Yeah.
But CJ Stroud?
Yeah.
I can see it.
I kind of like that. But I see everything you're saying. I completely agree. Like, there is a road to Ayuk actually becoming a wide receiver one. So it's stuff like that where it's just, we know Addison is just never going to be the wide receiver one for this team. Ever.
Yeah.
He's just never going to be the top dog as long as Justin Jefferson's there, which is going to be forever because there's no way they let Justin Jefferson go.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those where if you can get somebody else who is going to perform at a similar level or even could have that ceiling to go even further up, you might as well go for that trade, is what you're saying?
Exactly. And I think, like what you mentioned, like with Jerry Jeudy or Ayuk, like they're already producing at the level that we want to see from Addison. So they have like that floor and that a little bit more certainty, but also a higher ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And it seems like we got a tweet here that we're going to show the people.
Yeah, so actually from our teammate at League Winners, shout out to Tim Riley at FFRees on Twitter. Go give him a follow. He tweeted out a big boy trade, quote unquote big boy trade that he made, I believe, yesterday morning. And it includes a lot of the guys that we have mentioned on this list. And so I wanted to bring it up. He traded Anthony Richardson, Jordan Addison, Kenny Pickett, a 24 first, and a 24 second. There's a lot of pieces. And he receives Justin Herbert, Christian Watson, James Cook, Chigo Okonkwo, and Khalil Herbert. When I first saw this trade, my initial gut reaction was like, I like the Herbert side. Like, as much as I like Anthony Richardson, I think he did kind of what I'm talking about in this video. He went from Anthony Richardson and traded up, didn't trade down. He went up and got Justin Herbert. We talked about Christian Watson being similar, close in value to Jordan Addison, so I don't mind that swap at all. I don't like Kenny Pickett, so I don't care that he got rid of that. He got rid of a first and a second, brought in some high upside guys in James Cook, Chigo Okonkwo. As I've thought about it more, I think it's relatively fair just depending on the direction of either of these teams, but I want to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Nah, it's just like you said. It depends on how you're looking at this trade and what perspective, what kind of team you have. Because if you're looking to compete now, you're looking to win now, the receive side with Justin Herbert, Christian Watson, James Cook, Chigo Okonkwo, and Khalil Herbert, this is a good trade. You got a lot of guys with high upside, league-winning potential as well, like a guy like James Cook, who's been hyped up a lot over this offseason. Justin Herbert, obviously, like you said, he's what you're hoping Anthony Richardson is going to produce. Justin Herbert's already doing it for sure, so you know he's going to perform for sure this season. Whereas on the traded side with Anthony Richardson, Jordan Addison, Kenny Pickett, 24 first, 24 second, you're definitely looking to rebuild. You're just kind of hoping for the future, hoping these guys develop. You got Kenny Pickett, so you're definitely not looking to win now. So it's just it's just good to, that's more of the team building side of the trade. So it's one of those where I'm not mad at either side of this, especially depending on where my team is at currently.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point with like the competing side, because you're really mitigating risk. Like, as much as we like Anthony Richardson, and it is important to project, but we've never seen him do it. Right. There's always the chance that, you know, the other side of the coin is right. He's going to be a bust. He's never going to produce as a passer. We know that Justin Herbert isn't a bust. We've seen him do it. And Jordan Addison, we've never seen him on the field. We've seen Christian Watson do it. We've seen him produce. So yeah, just mitigating risk, even if it's not necessarily gaining a ton of value, and being able to have production in the near term. So I like both sides. I just wanted to bring that up because it involved a lot of the names that we've talked about so far. Real quickly, before we get into the rest of the video, Will, would you like to talk about a sponsorship?
Absolutely. Just want to thank again our partners over at the League Winners. Check out theleaguewinners.com. Check out all the other content creators, all the great articles, other videos we have on this channel as well. Just a lot of fun being had over here. It's just great vibes, really. So if you guys want to learn more about some fantasy football stuff, get to know some other great content creators in the space, check out theleaguewinners.com. And as a part of that partnership, we are also sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. And what that means is if you're a first-time user and you sign up using our promo code FFLW or the link down in the description below, they will match a deposit up to a $10 minimum, up to $100. So if you put in $10, they'll give you an additional $10, making that $20 in your account. If you put in $100, they'll put in an additional $100, making that $200 that you can go out and gamble with, have some fun, play some best ball. Get involved in some of the leagues they have. Just some great ways to play some fantasy football without the commitment, without having to gather a bunch of guys. If you don't feel like getting together a bunch of friends to put together a fantasy league, Underdog Fantasy is a great way to do that as well. So make sure you guys use that link down in the description below or promo code FFLW, and make sure you gamble responsibly. And thanks again to our partners over at Underdog Fantasy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Let's keep it rolling. We have 3 running backs to talk about to round out the rest of this video here. And I do hate to put this guy on the list because I like him a lot. I think you probably do too. And so hear us out. Hear us out. Because this isn't us saying we hate him. This isn't us saying you need to sell him. There's just some context that needs to be provided. The name I'm talking about is Ramondre Stevenson. Will, let's get it started. Let's kick off this discussion here.
So, like we said, we don't dislike Ramondre Stevenson. In fact, we're going to talk about some of the positive stuff that he did last season that even made him make this list in the first place. So, he put up over 1,000 rushing yards last year, commanded 88 targets, ended up turning that into 69 receptions. We heard even that he dropped one of those on purpose just so he could stay at 69. So, he really is a hero. And that was on a really bad offense last year. So...
Oh my God, you just kept rolling. That was so smooth. My bad. All right. Keep going.
No, you're good. So that was on a really bad offense last year led by Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, right? Those two idiots. And now we got Bill O'Brien, who's taking over as the offensive coordinator, who not the best head coach, not the best GM, but hell of an offensive coordinator. So glad to see him back under the Patriots umbrella. And that has to be an upgrade over Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. It literally has to be. It has to get better.
Yeah.
So I would expect his per touch efficiency to go up, them able to draw up some better stuff to deploy him in better ways. And I would also bet that his touchdown numbers go up after only having 6 of them last year as well. And Damian Harris is gone, and they didn't really bring in anybody significant to replace him. They brought in like James Robinson, Pierre Strong is still there, but nobody that's really contending talent-wise with Ramondre Stevenson.
Absolutely. So yeah, you outlined the positive really well. I can get into kind of the negative and the reason that we're talking about having him on this list. He was the RB14 in points per game last year at 12.6 points per game. That's not a bad thing, but I think the way that people are talking about him, it seems like the market thinks he produced more than he really did. They have him as an RB1, and you know, he's barely outside of that. But again, 12.6 points per game isn't like crazy difference-making production. We've also never seen Bill Belichick give anyone a workhorse role in this offense. I don't want to, you know, overstep with that because you can make the argument that he hasn't had a guy as talented as Ramondre Stevenson in quite a while, and I can see that as well. But Bill Belichick typically tends to redshirt rookie running backs when they come into the league. So guys like Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris, who were drafted last year, and I do think they're talented, not to Ramondre's level, but I do expect them to be more involved in the offense in 2023. And then another one, he's already 25 years old. That's not super old. He's got plenty of production left in him. But from a dynasty perspective, when we're talking about trade value, not necessarily production value, in trade value, it's really rare for guys at the running back position in dynasty to gain value after the age of 25. But like I said, it's not necessarily the production cliff where it's going to fall off, but I don't see you being able to trade him for more a year or two from now.
Yeah, like when it comes to dynasty running backs, like you said, it's sort of a fall off in value at 25. So you want to look at dynasty running backs like Leonardo DiCaprio looks at his women. Unless they're elite at 25, you probably should have let them go already. So
yeah, Will is cooking right now. Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just the truth right there.
Leo's onto something. In terms of dynasty running backs. Okay, let's make that clear. Yeah. I'll stop talking. Anyway, back to Ramondre Stevenson. I think if you're competing, there's an argument to keep him on your team. But again, I have an example here specifically from Keep Trade Cut, where you could trade Ramondre Stevenson and a 2024 third and bring in Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, even with Josh Allen having the elbow injury, and I think that was like around week 9, we saw a significant drop off in Stephon Diggs' targets and his production after Josh Allen suffered that elbow injury. But even with all of that included, he still put up 16.4 points per game. So even if you expect an uptick in Ramondre's points per game, he was at 12.4 last year. That's a huge upgrade, 4 points per game to get to Stephon Diggs. Again, Stephon is like 29.5. I think he'll be 30 by the time the season rolls around. But wide receiver shelf life is longer. So if you're competing, there's an argument to be made there. Do you want to keep Ramondre at the running back position? Do you want more production at the wide receiver position? Probably not a huge difference in the amount of years they have left to produce. And then if you're on the flip side of that coin, if you're rebuilding, if you're not competing, you probably want to get guys like Ramondre off your roster now, when they're at peak value before it's too late.
Yeah, definitely agree right there, because it's just, you can see someone who's 30 years old being a wide receiver 1 and still producing in the NFL, but at 30 years old at the running back position, probably not going to see that same thing. So it's just not an even trade-off right there in terms of value.
Absolutely. So again, that one is going to be controversial, as are, I'm sure, but that one specifically. So I hope you didn't just click off as soon as we mentioned Ramondre. I hope you heard us out. And again, not a must trade, but just something that you can consider there with his value as high as it is right now.
Absolutely.
Next guy on the list, another running back, is J.K. Dobbins. He's been getting a lot of hype on Twitter. I'm seeing a lot of people with some crazy projections for him, talking really highly of him. Just like I talked about Lamar Jackson, things are looking up for that Baltimore offense, a lot of changes coming in. But what is your outlook on J.K. this year and kind of going into the future?
I think people are right to be optimistic going into the season, because last season J.K. Dobbins performed a lot better than we thought he would, and that's him playing on like 1.5 legs. Like it was kind of visible that he was out there playing on 1.5 legs sometimes. So just the fact that he's going to be fully healthy, I think that's an upgrade in itself. But also just seeing how this offense should be rolling going into next season as well. I'm just excited to see this offense really open up more in terms of the passing game, and that should even open up the run even more. And J.K. Dobbins, in terms of efficiency, is up there with a lot of other running backs, so I do like him a lot. But me personally, I don't know if I'm really rostering him too much in Dynasty, and just in terms of because there is a lot of rushing competition with the Baltimore Ravens in terms of just Lamar himself. Obviously, the team values Gus Edwards a lot. They brought him in and said themselves that they look at him as a 1B to J.K. Dobbins 1A. So in terms of competition, I think there's a lot there, but in terms of efficiency, J.K. Dobbins can get the job done. So I'm not mad at him.
Yeah, I agree. There is reason for optimism, like you mentioned, but I think people are getting carried away if they think that he's going to. That's never going to happen in Baltimore. Like you mentioned, the team has always come out in favor of Gus Edwards, saying that he's just as important to the offense as J.K. Dobbins. I don't think we've ever seen J.K. Dobbins so far in his career average more than like 11 carries a game. So like it's low volume. He is incredibly efficient, and you know, that's partially the byproduct of just him being as talented as he is, but also running in a backfield with Lamar Jackson is going to open up a lot of space for people. And that's not a knock on him. If he's staying in that situation, that's not going to change. But yeah, I don't see an uptick in volume. I think that's going to continue to be about the same. Especially with the new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. I think you're going to see more passing volume for this Ravens team than we've ever seen before. So again, there's kind of give and take. There's positives, there's negatives, as with anybody. But when we're talking about value specifically, there's some guys that I highlighted around his ranking area on Keep Trade Cut. I think you could probably get Trey Lance plus a little on top. I think you could get Calvin Ridley plus a little on top, or Hollywood Brown plus a little bit on top. I'd probably do all of those But what are your thoughts on those guys?
No, I like that, especially Calvin Ridley and Hollywood, because Hollywood is set up right now, as of this moment, to be the wide receiver 1 in Arizona. Now, how much that's going to count without Kyler Murray there, I don't know. But still, he is the most elite option.
Just before you get super deep into that, DeAndre Hopkins is back.
Oh, he decided to stay.
Nothing's official. It's just like he went from requesting a trade definitely out the door to being like, okay, like I can come back. Now, he did come out on that podcast about wanting to play with a different quarterback. And like
he wants to play with one that loves football, loves the game. I remember that.
Yeah.
But
So
he said Kyler loves the game too, Call of Duty. So
you are on fire today, bro. 3 for 3.
Thanks, man. I'm doing good.
Clap it up for Will. Goddamn. But nah, I just wanted to make sure, currently he's on the roster, so it's possible that he's on the team. But for Hollywood, for me at least, he's not even a this year play because, like you said, Kyler's probably not going to be there for a large chunk of the year. So that's more of a next year and beyond play.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just like you said, like I was trying to get to. You're trading for 2 guys who are going to have solidified roles in their offenses. Also, on the young-ish side for Calvin Ridley, on the younger side for Marquise Brown, I'd say.
Yeah.
But and then Trey Lance, we don't really know what's going to happen with him, but I'm sure his days playing in the NFL aren't finished. It's just a matter of where it's going to end up being at. So I could definitely see an upgrade and at least getting somebody who's going to have that kind of upside to them,
Yeah, I put Trey Lance on this list. That's a personal thing. I understand that people are going to be all over the map as far as their opinions on him. That's not a you have to trade JK for Trey Lance. I just still see him as like the only guy in this value range that could potentially be like a top 12 dynasty asset. Like if he hits this year, he still has that upside in him. I'm not saying that's likely or that's what's going to happen. He, might not play another snap for the 49ers. He might go somewhere else, whatever. But just a guy that I still think has upside there.
Yeah.
And then the last guy on this list to round things out, another rookie, is Devin Achane. Undersized guy out of Texas A&M. I'm sure you guys have heard a ton about him so far throughout the pre-draft process. Now after the rookie draft, he gets the great landing spot going to Miami. But talk a little bit about his value amongst the rest of the dynasty landscape right now.
Yeah, he's one of the running backs right now that I've never been like. It's so weird because I'm so excited, but at the same time I'm kind of nervous about him because not even because of like the typical stuff like the size concerns, this and that. Someone said he weighed in at 192 and people were like, oh man, look at that, man, it's a lot better. But that is what it is to me. But in terms of just his landing spot in Miami and just everything else that's surrounding Miami right now with the Dalvin Cook rumors, with just the fact that Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. are both still there as well, I don't think they're both going to get completely phased out of the offense as well for a while. It's tough to really know what Devin Achane's outlook is really going to be on this offense until we see them play. So right now, there is a lot of hype that he could possibly be. I've seen tweets saying that he could at the very least be the receiving downs back for this because they didn't consistently have one back catching passes out of the backfield last season. That's something they're kind of looking for. But it's tough to say that he's going to have a super high volume role in this offense. It really doesn't seem like he's going to. And it doesn't really seem like he's body-wise built to have a sort of high volume role in this offense. So it's tough because he is one of those home run hitters, but at the same time, is he going to be able to do that every week in and out? We don't know.
Yeah, we both liked him as a prospect. His production profile in college looked really, really good. Obviously, his measurables in terms of athleticism were off the charts. And we've seen the hype with him going to Miami. People are already projecting him to be the RB1 from day one, to start out as the guy. And also, I think another important part of why maybe his hype is getting a little bit out of control is because he's a first-round rookie pick. But you and I have talked about this on our personal channel quite a bit. We've mentioned this to each other, to the community, whatever, that there was a pretty clear cutoff in this year's rookie drafts after the 110, like after that Zay Flowers range, where it was a massive teardrop between them and the rest of the draft. So yes, technically Devin Achane has been going as a first-round rookie pick. But like I think that's been artificially inflating his value compared to the rest of the vets and stuff in the league, more so than it really should be.
Yeah, because Devin A-Chain is really a second round rookie pick in a draft that just didn't have enough good rookie players, to be honest with you. So like I had the pleasure of having the 111 in one of our drafts, and Zay Flowers went right before, and I'm sitting there staring at Devin A-Chain and Zach Charbonnet.
The misfortune.
Yeah.
The misfortune, not the pleasure.
Yeah. I'm just sitting there staring at Devin A-Chain and Zach Charbonnet, trying to figure out what was the lesser of two evils in this situation.
Yeah.
And all in all, I should have just picked Sam Laporta. So it is what it is. But it's one of those places where, and we talked about it in our mock draft too, where when you're at that point in the draft, you can kind of just go with whoever your guy is at that point, because there's not too much of a huge difference going forward, especially with a lot of those second round talents.
Yeah, but to get specific into kind of the value that you get for a guy like A-Chain, again, I looked it up on Keep Trade Cut. If you add a 2024 top of A-Chain, you can get the combo of Elijah Moore and Tank Bigsby, which I'd be ecstatic about. Like, I'm already kind of thinking about Tank Bigsby in the same light as Devin A-Chain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not necessarily as players, but as producers. Like, I think that they could both produce around the same level. And then you get Elijah Moore fourth. Like, come on now. Do that all day.
Being honest, in terms of roles in these offenses, unless the Miami Dolphins say they're putting their laurels behind Devin A-Chain and they're only going Devin A-Chain all the time, I kind of see Tank Bigsby's role at Jacksonville as a little bit bigger even than Devin A-Chain's role with Miami. Because like I said, Devin A-Chain is one of three in a rotation at the very least that can all perform, whereas Tank Bigsby's one of two. You know, in an offense with a guy who's not the best goal line back, who's not, you know, and he's also sneakily good at catching passes as well, so he could get involved in the passing game. He's not just a, you know, grinder out there, so he's going to actually be able to be out there on passing plays as well. So
absolutely,
it's close. And Elijah Moore, we've seen him perform already, and now he's landing with the team with the potentially guys, elite quarterback in Deshaun Watson if he's able to get his shit together. So it would be cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think that will round it out for us. If you did stick with us till the end, we very much appreciate it. I know this one was a little bit controversial, some names on this list that might ruffle some feathers, but I hope you understood the context in which we were talking about this, and you could take away some value from it, whether you trade them or not. So yeah, Will, you wanna wrap us up here?
Yeah, with that being said, make sure you guys do all that great YouTube stuff. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you know every single time this channel drops some new videos. You can also check us out on our personal channel as well, the FF Ballbusters. You can check us out over there. Give us a like, subscribe, and follow as well. But make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, commenting on this video right here. Let us know what you think about some of these sells. You think we're crazy? Do you think we're on to something? Did we show you something maybe that you didn't see before? If there's something that maybe we didn't see, let us know what you think. Let us know who your sells are down below. And if you guys made it this far into the video, as always, we love you. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.